Hello, patrons! How are you all doing? I hope you're well. Greetings from a well, it was sunny. Now it looks less sunny, but still, it's been a very nice Massachusetts. I hope you're good. I hope you've all had the same sort of nice weather that we've had here. Let me see if I can show you outside. Oh, I look a bit paler using this camera. This is my view out the front window. A lovely sunny view. So how are we all doing today? My parents are still here. We've just got back from a really nice meal. We went down and had a meal at a local restaurant. I had a couple of glasses of wine to celebrate the summer. We went down to the beach earlier today. It's been fantastic. So Margaret said it's been gorgeous weather in the DC area. Fantastic. I'm glad we're all enjoying this. First of all, let me say a huge thank you for the great questions that people posted and asked on the post that I made today. That makes my life a lot easier because people were asking very specific things about how I go about recording, things about the recording software, things about how to put the guitar into the computer and whatnot. So I have got some things set up just to show you just that. Thanks, Shirley. I feel fresh and relaxed. So let me dive straight into the questions. Margaret asked the first question, and she was asking about the man with the rubber head, and she was asking, did you play along with the click track? Absolutely, yes. That I programmed a lot of the work in going into in setting up a kind of a project, I guess. They call it like the package I use is called Logic, and they call it a Logic project. A lot of the work that goes into recording a song goes into setting up the project. So particularly when you're working with film, so I imported the film, I created all the click track that you saw, I did a guide track to it. So I spent a long time doing a lot of material that will never make it to the final cut. And I've got two ways of showing you this. I think probably the best is to switch to this HD webcam I've got here. Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm going to put it back on the screen. Whoa, we've got infinite Patreon or infinite streaming sessions there. And here you can see the man with the rubber head. So if I put everything in, or should I say, let's start off with what I started with. So I started off with this piano track here. I'm just going to unmute these tracks here. There we go. That's all unmuted now. So if I play along, you'll see the video at the top. I can open the video so it's a bit bigger. By the way, I can't see what any of you are saying at the moment, so I'm not ignoring what you're saying. I just can't see it anymore. So I'm going to make this video be down there so you can see the rest of what's going on. And let's play The Man with the Rubber Head. So it starts here. I'll turn that up a little bit. So that's what I started off with. I basically started off with just a piano, which I programmed. And I saw that it fit nicely. So for example, that last note fits with the table being put down. And then I put when I'd finished with the tempos, I'll just turn that down a little bit. When I'd finished with changing all the different tempos and such, I added a click track to it. And so this is what this click track sounds like along with it. So I can just punch that in by turning this track on and off. And then I can take this out, and then I can record along with the click track. So I've taken the piano out there. That leaves me free just to play along with the click track, which I did. So this was my I did a couple of takes here. I picked the second one. It just felt a little bit better. I wasn't particularly precious about it. It was they were both rough guides, so I can put this guitar in and out. So I just played along with that click track, and that's me playing along with the click track. And of course, the version you heard was without the click track. So there, I've just taken out the click track. So I'm free to take out in and out all of these tracks. I can, if I bring up a mixer, I'm not sure how to do it on this version of Logic. Oh, it's probably down here. Well, I can do it from here, but I can turn this click track up and down if I get to a part where the click track is playing. So I'm turning that up and down there, making the click louder and quieter. So I've got all of that stuff going on. So that's basically how I put together the click track. Let's go back to this webcam. It's not quite as harsh as this webcam. So there you go. So that's basically how I put together that click track. So as I say, the project started with a lot of things that I've just seen here. I've just seen seen all your jokes. Sorry, I missed them. So yeah, as I say, the project started with a whole load of tracks that don't make it onto the final recording because they're just there as a guide for me to kind of play along with. There we go. Pale Paul is gone. Tan Paul is back. There we go. I go for this webcam every time. It's much more flattering. I do think I do have the ability to make myself look more flattering in that webcam as well. Maybe I should get around to that. So what's a guide track? Margaret asked a while ago. It might have been answered already. But a guide track is basically something that I'll play along with, such as a click track. A guide track is anything that will not make the final cut of the song. So when the mix has been done and when the song has been recorded and all of that stuff, it will be removed. So you won't. Funnily enough, there's a group of people go around kind of spotting if click tracks get accidentally left in the final mix, and it does happen sometimes. I remember there's a Dream Theater album, Scenes from a Memory, and there's a number of places on that. For whatever reason, the click track in places made it onto the finished album by mistake. But anyway, that would be classed as a guide track, something to play along to, but you don't want it to be in the final recording. So there you go. What word is that for rubber? I don't know. Was rubber a new invention back in 1901? Possibly. I don't know. It's a very good question. Is there anybody? Well, I know we do have French speakers among us. We've got certainly one French speaker among us. So any translations would be very, 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 very much appreciated. Okay, I'm reading these questions now. Am I reading the music as I play, or have I memorised it all? That's what Margaret just asked. No, I've memorised it all. My reading skills are not as good as that, so I memorise the whole thing. This tune goes like this. I'm not sure how well you can hear that. And you've heard the rest, but yeah, that's how it goes. So yes, no, I don't. I don't read. I can read, but certainly that that complicated stuff when I've got to be looking at my fingers all the time, because that is, it's not a very guitar-y piece. You do have to look at your fingers pretty much all the time to see where you are on the fretboard. So yeah, reading that sort of thing is very difficult, particularly at that speed. To be honest with you, I'll be perfectly frank, my reading skills aren't up to scratch to be able to sight read something as fast as that. I've never had to develop reading skills for that for that level of ability, because anything that I've played, anything I play live, I always feel like reading is cheating for the stuff that I've done, because it's all been live performance. It's different if you're kind of in an orchestra pit, or if you're playing with an orchestra, or if you're in a studio and you're just a session musician. But the 99.999% of the things that I've done have been live playing, and really, I don't like seeing musicians with music in front of them for the type of music that we play, that I play, because somehow it takes away from the performance, I think. So no, I don't read stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to. I'm just scrolling up your Margaret. Your message about your comment about Pale Paul made me chuckle again. It sounds great. Thank you very much. Okay, this is a very, very simple setup that I've got down here. I'm going to bring back Pale Paul for this to show you the setup. This basically, what's going on down here is, this is my helix, and you'll see that this actually, Rich and Deb Dirksen, who are patrons, this was a Christmas tune that they that Deb commissioned me to write, or a tune that Deb commissioned me to write. It turned into a Christmas tune, and you can see. No, you can't see. The light is not that good. But if we go to this screen, basically these are all things I can add to the signal chain. This is a Line 6 Helix. It's got amp simulators and all sorts on it. But this is a compressor. More about compressor in a minute. And this here is an amplifier simulator. So we've just got an amplifier just to give it a little bit of gain, just to give it a little bit of body, and you can shape the sound. So it's simulating an amplifier rather than putting the guitar straight into the desk. I said I'd explain compression. Compression is basically a way of squashing a sound. Everything you listen to on the radio, every kind of pop song or whatever will have compression on it, and it will have compression on most instruments. And then at the end, the whole song will be compressed as well. So basically, what happens with compression. Oh, we've got a visitor, but I'll tell you about compression. What happens with compression is all of the you basically put a ceiling on the signal, on the waveform, and all of the very loud signals are turned down, which has the effect of kind of squashing the sound. And what you can then do with the sound is you can turn the entire thing up, so all the low signals and now high signals, you can turn them all up, and it makes for a mix, a version of the song or a version of the vocals, in this case a version of my guitar, where all of the levels, or the difference between the low notes, as in the low in volume notes, and the high in volume notes is much less. So it means that it's perfect for in the radio. Classical music, for example, on the radio is notoriously difficult to listen to, because very often you get lots of quiet and you get lots of louds in classical music. So you'll be driving along and a quiet bit comes on, so you'll crank it up, and then all of a sudden the loud bit comes on and you're like, oh my god, what is this? I'll turn it down, and this keeps going on. So what they do is, on classical music radio stations, very often they use compression to turn all of those loud bits down, so then you can turn the overall thing up, and you get a much more level sound. So that's what compression is. So yes, so I just had some compression on the guitar, which means that when I play a note like this, there's not so much a difference with a big loud note. I know that sounded like a big difference, but would be much, much more exaggerated if there wasn't compression on there. Okay, some more questions. So, okay, somebody was saying, Margaret, a click track in the Final Cut. Oh, okay, right. I thought you were referring to Final Cut, the program. Yes, absolutely. Yes, they do get left back in there accidentally. The paleness is blinding. Thanks. Yeah, is that the one you took on tour this last time around? Betsy said, yes. This is the Line 6 that I used as my pedal board this time around. Exactly. And it's a great piece of kit. As I say, Line 6 probably wouldn't like me saying this, but I do prefer individual pedals. After all, this is just trying to emulate individual pedals, and in the long run, individual pedals do sound better, fractionally better. But for the convenience, and the great thing about this, another question was, how do you get your guitar sound in? Well, at the moment, what's happening, I'm going to go back to Pale Paul. So at the moment, I've just got a guitar cable coming out of that and coming into my mixing desk, and then they're going through the speakers. But this thing does have a USB out, which means I can just plug it into a USB port, and away I go. I'm recording straight from the pedal without having to worry about preamps or mixing desk settings or my mixing desk adding EQ to what I'm hearing. So it is a fantastic way, a very, very convenient way to record. Yes, and yes, it is my flyboard. Absolutely. I'm glad I explained it well. Thanks, Betsy. Okay. One question here from Shirley. Time to introduce our special guest here. Do you want to come over?
Hello again.
It's Mr. B Senior again. Do you want a chair? Do I have a chair?
No, you don't have a chair.
Oh, I've got some chairs over there. Do you want to sit down? Let's get him a chair. Let's make him comfortable. But one question we've got here from Shirley, aka Prog Chick, is I'm curious about meeting John Sebastian. He must have been impressed with your playing, and then for him to know your dad was there, who was a big fan of his.
That's the photograph of the event.
Yeah.
And I have to say, first of all, it was an amazing occasion because you know, quite often they say don't meet your heroes because they never ever they're always disappoint.
Yeah.
And on this occasion, my word, he didn't. After the concert, I brought album covers over. I didn't bring the albums over, just the covers. So there's that has been played to death. I think that's my third copy of this album, and this other one. So when I get home, these will be framed. I have a music wall, and on my music wall I have signatures of most of the people who I like musically. So I've got Paul Simon, signed photograph of Paul Simon. I have Crosby, Stills and Nash signed photograph. I have an Eric Clapton signature. Mm-hmm. I have John Mayall's Blues Breakers. I have a poster right back to the 60s, 65, 66. And I had it in a cupboard for a long, long, long time, covered in dust. Went to see him. He's 82 now, and he signed the poster. And the other one I haven't got any Beatles, but I do have Klaus Baumann. Now, Klaus Baumann was the guy who actually designed the Revolver cover.
Oh, okay.
And he also played bass on a lot of George Harrison stuff. So he is sort of a fifth Beatle. And if you go onto his website, he actually sells signed prints.
Oh, right.
And I've got a pencil drawing, which is a print of the Revolver cover.
Wow.
So this is his initial sketches, and it's signed. And I think it's an edition of about 200. So that's my wall. I've got all those. So these will end up on my wall back in England.
Very
so,
nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So he came prepared. We booked these tickets for the concert before you came over. In fact, he's not playing anywhere around here. It was just a chance that he was.
It was.
Playing.
I mean, he was in Plymouth, which is a lovely place to visit anyway.
Yeah.
And the fact that we were in this music shop right next to the venue, and you went in to look at guitar pedals.
Yeah.
And we were in the pedal area, and all of a sudden, in he walked. And my word, it was just a magical half hour, three-quarters of an hour. He played for us. Yeah. He sang. Yeah. Had photographs. What a lovely guy, really. And as I said, it's so nice to meet someone who didn't disappoint. He delivered in, as we say, in spades back in England. And the concert was magic, you know. And somebody said about, do you believe in magic? Well, after that concert, I do. Because he was magic. Yeah, so it was great. Perfect. So that's been the highlight of our visit so far. Thanks. Yeah, well, it has. I have to say that because it has. You know,
not seeing his son.
I will look back. Well, I see you all the time. You know. But so we're on our way down now. We're now Thursday. This time next week, I will be a distant memory because we'll be back home.
Gone but not forgotten.
Gone but not forgotten. And but yeah, so we're trying to make every hour last as long as it can. Yeah. So it's been great. Yeah, enjoyed it.
All right. There's lots of chatter coming through. Let's see what people are saying. People are saying it's Mr. B Senior. Hello, Mr. Pottery Dude from Caroline.
Hello.
That's so cool, Peter. Is the music wall in the music room with the 12 guitars?
It's more than 12 now because it's got all yours in there now.
Yeah.
There are, I'd say, about 21 in there now. Yeah. I know I have my vinyl playing system upstairs, so I've got my vinyl upstairs in the music room. The CD player's down in the living room. So yeah, and I'm collecting now vinyl. Thank goodness it's come back, and it really does sound good. Yeah, so I'm pleased with it. And the wonderful thing is here as well. In New Bedford and Dartmouth area, there are antique houses, places where I'm buying vinyl.
Yeah.
I think I've got about 5 pieces, five records, which I can't get back in England. So
yeah, introducing you to those vinyl.
No, we've another 2 places to hunt out yet. Yeah. So that'll be.
In fact, she's watching from inside the house. Sorry, Mum. Maybe we should make that trip on our own. It's a bit. She enjoyed
looking around the antique places as well, and got a nice piece of jewellery as well.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
So it was well worthwhile over being there.
Terry asked, "Who was your favourite back in the day?"
Oh, it has to be the Beatles.
It has to be the Beatles.
I mean, there's nobody comes close. Really.
I could have answered that.
Yeah, although
in this audience, I think you need to say ELP comes close.
Yes, came close. But don't forget that this was the 70s, and I'm talking about back in the 60s when I there was a little venue that was maybe about 5 or 6 miles where we lived that all the top bands played. Sadly, I didn't see the Beatles, but Jimi Hendrix, the Searchers, the Hollies, Manfred Mann, the Who, and I also found out looking through the archives that the Loving Spoonful were there, and I didn't see it. For some reason, I think that's when I went away to college. The Loving Spoonful were there. Yeah. In fact, you did mention that to John when we saw him, that you were in our area, but we never got to it. So I've made up for lost time. Yeah, Crosby, Stills and Nash, probably my first album. That's probably my favourite. Bob Dylan. So Dylan back in the 60s when he was booed annoyingly, but yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, seen them all. And of course, Paul's been to all, quite the majority of them as well. A lot of the venues that we went early day. You know, yeah.
Betsy is suggesting that if I'm not available for a live stream, you can do one in my place.
Absolutely, I wouldn't play the guitar quite as well as you would.
You play differently, but
definitely differently.
Yeah, I think we should get you playing.
It's a bit more folky and a bit more bluesy, and certainly it'd be acoustic.
I'm not going to put you on the spot right now, but I think one day we should do that.
Yeah, maybe when I come back next time.
Absolutely, that sounds great. Yeah. Oh, a few people are saying hi, Mum. Hi, Mum. A guest presenter, absolutely. All right. Well, I've got a few more questions that have been sent to me in advance, so I need to make sure I get through all of those. I think I answered all of the things with the click track, didn't I? Another, just to make sure I was clear about it. One thing that Margaret was saying about the click track. How do I play with a click track? Yes, I do. We said that. But one thing that she asked that I didn't necessarily answer was, how do I keep it out of the recording? Well, that's because it's playing in these speakers here. This speaker, I was going to show you speakers, but you've seen speakers before. There's some speakers just behind you, just behind you there. And the click comes out of there. But, of course, pardon me, my guitar is not being mic'd up. So there's no microphone on my guitar. It's going straight into this Helix effects unit, and either that goes into the desk or it goes straight into the computer via USB. So the guitar is not picking up any ambient sound of the room. I can be in the noisiest place in the world, and all you'll hear is the guitar straight into the computer. So that's how the click is not being picked up. Okay. All right.
Margaret said she's never seen a speaker before. What are you talking about? You've never seen one. You've never seen one, Margaret.
It's lots of pixie dust and magical elements.
I reckon there's an element of sarcasm there, just a touch.
All right, Kathy asked oh, wait a minute. No, Eric asked first. Sorry, I will get to you, Kathy. But Eric asked, he'd like to see what process stroke gear I used to use digital recording. Okay, Eric, there's one more element that I didn't mention that I did use on Preludes and Etudes. I think, if I remember rightly, I did, for some tracks, I definitely did mic up an amplifier. But for others, I used this thing here. This is the first time and the only time you're ever going to see a pale Peter. Look at that. Oh, he doesn't really look pale at all. This is pale Paul. That's still tanned Peter. But I've got this thing here. You like my coaster there? That was a gift from my parents. This Palmer speaker simulator, no relation to the Carl Palmer that we know. But this Palmer speaker simulator was just an absolute revolution in the 80s. And then they went out of business, stopped making them, and I needed to have one, so I paid a fortune on eBay for it. And about 3 months later, they started doing a reissue for a fraction of the price I paid. So there you go. But I got one of the originals, which is quite cool. So yes, so what you do with that is you put an amplifier's output, the speaker output. So instead of plugging into a cabinet or into like a built-in speaker that we have behind on those combos, you put it straight into that, and that's got a couple of XLR outs. XLR being the 3-pinned microphone cable, and that goes straight into a desk. So that is how I recorded the guitar sound on much of Preludes and Etudes, and it was a Marshall JMP amplifier. And of course, with it going into a speaker simulator, you can crank it as much or as little as you like. So in terms of turning it up or turning it down, That wasn't an option at all. That wasn't an issue at all. So that's how I recorded the guitar sounds on there. And also, Eric asked about the. Did you also ask about? Yes, you did. The backing tracks. Funnily enough, those backing tracks, it's all programmed. I just programmed all of the string parts and all of the piano parts and all of the whatever else instruments are on there. And I just used the built-in Logic sounds. It sounded good to me. I had a guy who was mixing the album, and he had really expensive piano plugins and really expensive string plugins, and he had all of this. But I spent must have been dozens of hours just getting these strings parts right. And by getting the string parts right, I mean taking every single individual note of every single instrument and adjusting the velocity, which is basically the volume, but it's more specific of how you're programming the string sample to sound as if someone's hit it. So, if someone hits a guitar really hard, it sounds different to just being louder, if that makes sense. So, for example, if I pluck this string and I really pluck it very hard, that is a different tonal quality to to the quiet string. So when it's loud, it's a different tonal quality to when it's quiet, in as much as you've got a real snap at the start of it. It reacts different. It's a harsher sound. It's a different kind of frequency. So you've got all of that stuff programmed into the Logic sounds and into any MIDI sounds. And so I spent a lot of time, selecting the velocity for each note to make it different and to make it sound like a real string section. And also moving the notes around so they weren't so perfectly in time, so they sounded more like a real orchestra. I think you were visiting when I did a lot of the string parts,
and it took you a long time to get it right.
And I remember my dad saying,
I
remember my dad saying, "For goodness sake, Paul, it'll do. It'll be fine."
Well, Paul knew what sound he was after, and we couldn't really differentiate the nuances of the sounds, which you could. So,
yeah.
But it worked anyway. So
yeah,
you were right.
It did the job.
Yeah.
So that's how I got that. It was all programmed, and if I take you, I think I can do this. All right, here we are in Logic. If I take you, this is the man with the rubber head. If I take you into this, there we go. So if I take you into this screen here, this is just the click track. But you can think this is what it looks like. So I can take the velocity of this. By the way, we're looking at. I don't know if you can see which one we're looking at. I don't know if the mouse will show, but you'll see it moving up and down. Hopefully. So I'm turning that up and down. Imagine doing that for every piece. For every single note of an entire piece. Oh, our heads were in the way then. All right, let me do it again. We're looking at the note that's highlighted. So basically, what I did was this. I'm turning this one click up and down, and you can hear the different tonal qualities in that. So that's what I did for every single piece, every single note in the in each of the stringed instruments, and I would move the timing around fractionally as well, to slightly before, just to make it seem like a human had played it, because no human plays it as perfectly in time as a computer programs it. So a lot of that went on, just moving it around, so it felt like it sounded natural to me rather than it sounded like a computer. So there you go.
Oh, you should say, "That's no nice gentleman, that's my father."
I can't remember who Arlette Vince is, but yeah, that's the British sense of humour for you.
Thank you for calling me a nice gentleman.
And Kathy asked what inspired me to go in the direction of silent movies. Well, the inspiration was came from a few places. I remember going over to my friend's house, and we did the thing where you watch The Wizard of Oz while playing Dark Side of the Moon, and you got to press play on the album at the third roar of the lion, of the MGM lion, and it syncs perfectly. And clearly, I say clearly, I could be banished by some purists, Pink Floyd purists, but clearly it's accidental. It's a coincidence. It's an amazing coincidence, but it wasn't written as a soundtrack. I'd be shocked if anybody said that it was. Anyone from the band said it was. But it does match up perfectly. And I got to thinking, what if I did write a soundtrack to some of these movies? And so and then obviously thinking, well, I could do it live, but there's a problem with copyright to do it live because you can't just screen any old movie. And also a lot of movies, it's taking away from the movie if you can't hear the dialogue. So silent movie is the obvious way to go. And I've always liked this idea of mixing media, mixing visual with music, with whatever. I used to like watching Jean-Michel Jarre's concerts. He did some amazing concerts where he would kind of have kind of, I don't know what you call them, artists, physical artists, or
ballet, wasn't it? There was lots of ballet and light shows, etc.
But he'd have things like, I remember one particular time there was this concert for tolerance, and it was all about kind of unification and anti-racism and stuff. And he had a person in a completely black, skin tight leotard, covered their entire body. It was a black bodysuit basically, and there was a person in a white bodysuit, and the person in the white bodysuit had a white pot of paint, and the person in the black bodysuit had a black pot of paint. And throughout the course of the concert, they were stood next to each other, painting each other. So by the end of and they timed it perfectly, by the end of the concert, the person that started off with the white suit was completely black, and the person with the black suit was completely white, and it was amazing. I mean, I'm not quite sure what he was saying by it, but I just love that concept of having more going on than the music and mixed media arts. And I've always been into the arts in general, so silent movies seemed like the perfect way to mix arts. So that's why I like to see different things going on. I like to give as many things to an audience as possible, because in 2 hours of instrumental music doesn't always hold people's attention, and you've got to do as a performer, you've got to do everything you can to entertain people and grip people and hold their attention.
We actually went up to Boston the other day to see one. We saw Chicago, didn't we?
Yeah.
The 1927 silent movie, and that was 2 hours, 2 hours 10, 2 hours 20 minutes, and that was keyboard accompaniment, and that was fascinating. The time went so quickly, didn't it?
Yeah,
it really did. Yeah, it was even down to little bells that used for sound effects, etc. It was brilliant.
Yes,
and of course you've got Cirque du Soleil doing the Beatles.
Right.
And I've seen some of the clips. That's in Las Vegas. I'd love to see that. But some of the clips that I've seen have been incredible.
Yeah.
So there is a genre that has moved in that direction.
I think the whole multimedia art thing.
Yeah. There's some interesting questions there about Metropolis. You've just got Metropolis.
Yeah, in fact, somebody Rolf Remlinger just sent me Metropolis as a gift, a DVD. In fact, the guy we saw, Jeff Rapsis, do Chicago, I saw him do Metropolis as well. He did an amazing job of it.
Yeah, that was good.
That's 19. I think it's around 27. It's around. It's near the end of the. It's the 20s anyway. It's near the end of the silent era.
Yeah.
But Rolf just sent me a version of the Peter and Paul show. Once just. Is it Peter, Paul, and Mary? We just need a Mary.
No, Mary. No. The answer, my friend. Puff the Magic Dragon.
What was I saying? Metropolis. Oh yeah, Rolf just sent me a version that's like a rock version, and it's got Freddie Mercury on it. It's got Queen and stuff like that. So I need to check that out. But yes, Metropolis is definitely one that I have considered.
Charlie Chaplin, someone.
I think Charlie Chaplin would be great. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. That would be fantastic as well. There's just so much to choose from. So much to choose from.
It's all genius, and a lot of it really has been forgotten. And to bring it back in another genre would be really good.
But also, I think there's a book that I read. Called Silent Clowns, and its opening chapter makes the argument that in many ways, if you look at film as an art form, in many ways, silent movies logically should have come later, because you start with like all of the big like Renaissance painters. You got Michelangelo and all of those.
Careful, you tread on my territory.
Well, it's true. Yeah, my dad's is a retired art teacher, but you've got art kind of starts off with perfect replication of real life, and incredibly realistic. Hence, nowadays you've got the talkies or sound movies. And then gradually you move away, and it was kind of the same with music as well. Like you got Beethoven. I mean, I always go on about Beethoven, but or maybe even Bach or someone like that. You've got these perfect. Certainly with Bach, you've got these perfect mathematical structures that are just technically perfect, and they don't break any rules, and they just wow. That is, it's kind of. It's just as mathematical and perfect as you could possibly get it. And then you get Beethoven, who started to put the emotion in there, and those guys around there, not just him. But then obviously you've got these huge masterworks like Beethoven's Ninth and the Beethoven symphonies, and then gradually after that, the reaction was to be a reduction until in the 20th century you got people getting away from even doing it in one key, didn't you? And it's kind of the same with movies, with silent movies. So this book was arguing that as an art form, if movie art would follow the rest of art, music, or visual arts, as in physical visual arts, you would naturally get this reduction of the really, really close to life, really, really super high definition with sound and everything, like you're there in the movie. And gradually, if it was an art form like the others, move towards a reduction of taking away things. So taking away the sound, taking away the colour, and this idea of movies being an art form rather than just a form of entertainment. I really like that. So I think it has a point. All right, we've just had a load of questions come through, I think. Can you conference call Mr. B in the future? I think that's possible.
It is possible.
That's very possible.
When I'm over in the UK.
It does mean you staying up till late.
Well, I am a night owl.
He's a night owl. Well, you heard it here.
I am usually up until 1 or 2 in the morning.
There you go. So, very possible. If
by that time, I'll have probably had a couple of malt whiskies.
Even better.
Or a gin and tonic, so it could be even more interesting.
Even better. There we go. This sounds like a perfect recipe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's answered everyone's questions. This was a lot of fun. We've just done 50 minutes.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah.
I came in for the last 10 minutes, by the way.
That was the plan.
That was the plan.
You came in half an hour ago.
Yeah. I like it. I said, well, I'm going to talk about John Sebastian, so
Yeah.
that would be it. Yeah. So anyway, it's been lovely to speak to you all, and hopefully can do it again one day. Like you say, with technology the way it is, we can maybe communicate over the airways.
Absolutely.
Thousands of miles. Right?
And maybe we can even make a transatlantic musical collaboration happen.
Possibly,
as well.
but I better get practicing then, haven't I? Right.
He's very modest. He's very good.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right. Bye. Thanks, guys. Speak to you soon. Bye.